Christopher Luxon has been touring around the country. He has been speaking to people to try and garner their vote. I have for a long time, and we have, I should say, been talking about Luxon's dilemma. And Luxon's dilemma is, how do you get the vote of those people who perhaps aren't the nicest people in the world? How do you get their vote without having to adhere to their ideologies? How do you bring on board, let's just pick a label, the racists, without having to adhere to the racism they spout, or you can push back against what they say, but also bring on board, their vote, rather than sending them off to ACT or, fuckwits for freedom party or whatever they are. It appears at the moment now Luxon is basically just saying, you have to vote for me. So from some video footage that's come out from Kate Davis out of the Nelson area, on her Twitter feed today. This has done a lot of rounds today. I've communicated with Kate over Twitter today. We did ask her to come on, but I don't think we've been able to quite connect with that to get a personal eyewitness experience. But she's got some stuff up on her Twitter feed. And I think we are going to have a look at it, because the stuff is telling. And it's not just what's being said. It's actually what's being said by the audience. And then after these things are said, Luxon is into it by saying, you have to vote for me. So he's not actually just, how do we court these votes now? He's just saying it. Vote for me, vote for me, vote for me. Let's have a look at a couple of clips of Luxon in, I think it was in Nelson today, but it's in that region, Nelson Bay's area.
We all understand school, but I've seen signs change to Kura.
Okay, so if you didn't hear that, it's a person in the audience for those who are listening. We all understand school, but I've seen signs change to Kura. We don't know what that means.
Oh, use your context.
We're all there.
About it. We're talking to you. We want some action.
We want some action. So this is someone screaming from the back. We want some action about bilingual signs, right? That's what they're talking about. And Luxon's response is...
Yeah, well, mate, the first thing you got to do, buddy, is you got to vote October the 14th to get me in there to government.
So no longer is there any sort of, how is he going to do it? How is he going to distance? He's just saying flat out now, well, you just got to vote for me. Just vote for me. Here's another video from the same group. And yes, as people are saying in the chat, very, very, very white, very old audience. But, they're a constituency. They're entitled to be there, but you wouldn't say much diversity in anything other than perhaps the colour of the blue rinse that goes through the women's hair in this group. Here's another short clip for you.
I'm not a supporter of us changing the name to Aotearoa New Zealand, because our brand is New Zealand, and that's what it should be.
Fuck off.
And if there is a desire in the country to change it to Aotearoa, then that should be a referendum that's taken to all New Zealanders.
Now, the thing that I think he's going to be unfortunate with is, if there is a referendum, there's every chance it'll actually pass. Then what? Like, if there was a referendum that said, shall we do Aotearoa New Zealand, I think there's a good chance that it will pass. Rather than saying just Aotearoa or just New Zealand, if it was like Aotearoa New Zealand, I think there's every chance that that could pass. Now, finally, Kate has actually done a little bit of journalistic work here. And me and Chewy were talking before we came on about Tom Segura's new stand-up routine. It's called Sledgehammer. It's hilarious. I laugh my ass off. There's, those moments that you're by yourself and you laugh out loud and it kind of catches you, because laughter is sort of a group activity often. And you can often watch a thing by yourself and not laugh out loud. But then if you watch the same thing with other people, you laugh out loud, because there's a collective element to it. When I watched, she makes a joke at the end of this. I'm building this up because it's good. I laughed out loud watching this like I just heard a Tom Segura joke. So this is Kate's analysis of the crowd, and the very last line, or the second to last line, it's absolutely brilliant. You ready for this? This is the analysis.
Here I am, about to see Christopher Luxon, and I can report the audience is full. The place is packed, actually. There's people waiting outside, the car park is full. And yeah, the room does smell of polydent, and the average age would definitely be OAP.
The room definitely does smell of polydent. And if you're not quite sure what that is, it's used for cleaning.
You're too young.
Dentures.
You don't know what it is.
Dentures. So there you go. The room smells of polydent was Kate's analysis of the room. But there you go. So I think we can now say, Chewy, that there's no longer a pretense of how is he going to keep distance and get their vote? He's just telling them to vote for me. And he's hitting all those cards that they want to hear. He's supporting them about bilingual signs, and then the same thing he's talking about. Aotearoa is not the name of this country. Go on and on. Yours, sir. Today's episode is brought to you by bhnshop.nz. Yep, that's right. Big Hairy News has merch that enables you to both support what we do and allows you to voice your political opinions via the international medium of clothing. Head to bhnshop.nz for this month's drop of either If the Left Vote, the Left Wins, or Christopher Luxon, not a businessman, just a board member, with free delivery in New Zealand. This month's drop ends July 20th, so be quick and head to bhnshop.nz to make your order and support what we're doing to fight mis- and disinformation this election cycle. That's bhnshop.nz.
Look, I've come to his defense in the past. Like, there was that meeting in Wanaka where people were going on about COVID. He's pushed back a little bit on this narrative before, and now he's given up. He's absolutely given up, and he's pandering. He is pandering to this audience, rather than look. There's ways that you can go. Hey, look, I realize that change might be scary, but you know what? That sign is not for you.
Hang on, my surname's not Kura. This is a school for the people called Kura. What does that mean, Joey?
I mean, how the fuck is anyone supposed to work out what that is? There's a picture of the running children. There's the word that enrages me. And then there's the English word as well. Now, obviously, that is way past what anybody should have to put up with.
I know.
Gosh. And like
these people fought and died that we wouldn't have to have the word Kura on that sign, Joe. They fought and died for us, so that wouldn't have to happen.
They have a chance to talk about the big issues that are concerning them. For these guys, it's that they might have to learn a new word, that they might have to put on their thinking caps and put together some context clues together.
I think you're being too gracious. They don't have to learn a new word. Put the sign up again. They don't have to learn the new word because the word they know is there. So actually, I don't even think that's you're being too generous. They're just being difficult on purpose because the other word is there. They're not learning a new word because it's there. They're just being assholes because they don't want the other word there. Probably like they don't want the Māori in the shop beside them buying food with them. They just don't want, it's almost, that they think that perhaps there is a supremacy version of race that white people adhere. I don't know what you'd call that, but it feels like maybe there's something in that to them because it's like they want to obliterate that word and potentially those people from being anywhere near them because it doesn't sync with them.
Yeah, and I think at this point he is desperate for votes. So there is not going to be any pushback. There is not going to be any correction of like, hey, you've got me, potentially the next leader of the country. What big issues do you want to hear about from? It's bilingual signs and by the rest of Kate's Twitter thread about regional roads that aren't even central government's responsibility.
Yeah.
These guys, and this is what I've said right from the get-go in the run-up to this election, these guys that were at that meeting that were going on about this just bullshit, they are going to vote. They are going to vote National. They are going to vote ACT, or they're going to vote for some other right-wing crank party, hopefully. But if they get all behind National and ACT and the left don't turn out and the young don't feel like they're listened to, then they will win. And that's just confirmation bias at that point, that's what people want. The other thing that just drove me batty is his referring to New Zealand as a brand.
Yeah.
Because A, we're not a brand, we're a fucking country, and B, Aotearoa is a brand as well. It's used overseas. He ran the airline that is quite happy to be the national airline of Aotearoa, who wanted to trademark the word kia ora, you know, he's quite happy to do it if it's in his best interest. And now it's not. So any forward movement that we've got on just evening the scales, even just a little bit,
Yep.
on the back burner. Fuck
Yeah.
it. Let's roll back the clock.